Okay, hi. So today I'm going to talk about what I read in February. This month was very fantasy heavy and was quite a good reading month. So the first one I want to talk about is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Yeah, so this has been kind of all over BookTube, and it is as charming, I think, as everyone kind of says it is. This is kind of loved across all all kind of creators who are into all different sorts of genres. I think this is a book that people who play D&D would like, because it's kind of like you're following an orc, and she was basically on campaigns her whole life and then decides that she's retiring from that lifestyle. She's going to open up a coffee shop. So how people have talked about this book, I kind of thought that that was like the backstory and the coffee shop was already established, but you're actually seeing her like buy the place, fix it up, make friends along the way. She befriends a lot of different creatures. So she befriends a hobgoblin and a succubus and a ratkin, and it's like fairly low stakes. Like there's definitely things that are going on. There are people from her past in her old life that come to kind of see her, and you kind of just watch her make friends and build up this coffee shop, and that's like the most of the story. So it was quite charming. I liked the characters. I really liked the storyline. It was just very gentle and just a really nice, easy, relaxing read. The next thing I read is Galatea by Madeline Miller. This is quite a short, it's like a short story that I think was originally published as like an online non-print release and then has recently got a print. And it is about a woman who was created as a statue and then was like turned into a woman. And I can't really say too much, but it's about her relationship, like her mental health and her relationship with her husband and the things that have come out of their relationship. Kind of reminded me, like, in a ways of The Awakening. But overall, I can't really say much because it is very short. It's only like 50 pages, but it was quite a nice read if you're like looking for a little bit of a Madeline Miller fix in between how long it takes her to publish works. Okay, the next thing I read, or I guess finished, was Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. This is the first book in the Live Ship Trader series. This is the second series in the realm of the Elderling. It's quite a bit different than the Farseer trilogy, where in the Farseer trilogy, you're following Fitz. You're really following him, his life, and like really focusing in on his like perspective and like the relationships he develops. And he is like absolutely the main character. In the Farseer trilogy, you are following a few groups of people, but you kind of center all around this one family for the most part. There are many different perspectives that you're following, so it took me a little bit longer to get into this. And while the Farseer trilogy, the first book, had like a really nice like round ending where you could probably read the first book, and if you didn't want to continue on with the series, you're of course not getting the whole story, but you're getting part of it. The first book here ends very much so in the middle of things going on, so you really have to go into the next book. I was very invested, so I was ready to start reading the second book almost immediately, and I'm quite a bit into that book currently. Robin Hobb is quite exceptional at writing unlikable characters in a way where they're still interesting and you might actually root for them. There's this character in this book that is objectively, not a good person. I will say most of the characters are not good people, but this one in particular, he knows he's a piece of shit, but the people around him, don't, and, he does everything for the wrong reasons. And I think that there's, this really great juxtaposition of characters that kind of happens in this, and, character plots and, storylines and, their progression. There's one character opposition in particular that I really like, and it's two very unlikable men. And one of them is doing the right things for the wrong reasons, and one of them is doing the wrong things for what he thinks are the right reasons. And just watching like that kind of play out and their character stories progress is really, I appreciate it quite a bit. But it is one of those series where I'm reading about a lot of characters I don't really like. And so if you have to like there's not many characters in this to latch onto. I do think that there are a few that are worth, that that most people would like. But overall, like they're all very flawed. So yeah, I'm currently reading that. I'm starting the second book. I've been reading this as a buddy read with Mariana at Mariana Moss Books. We've been having a great time with it. So I would never recommend this without reading the Farseer trilogy, because there are kind of like connections, and if you're going to read the entire realm of the Elderling, you should start at the beginning. But overall, it is like a good read for so far, and I like maritime vibes. So these all take place on ships. Obviously, it's about live ships. I didn't really go into plot. I'm sure you're not super interested unless you've already read the first series. The next one I read is Babel by RF Kuang. So Babel is a historic fiction that has fantasy elements. I really love the fantasy elements in this. It is our world, but silver has power. So it's this idea, and language has power, and it's the connection of those two things. I really love reading things in translation. I really love, when I read things in translation, reading the translator's notes. And a lot of the time those notes talk about words or like ideas that are very hard to translate because they don't have a one-to-one relationship between the two. So in this book, the idea with the magic system is that there is this like space between meanings. So you can have a word in one language and the same idea in another language, but there's this space that exists where they kind of mean the same thing, but there's a little bit more to it. And magic lives within that space, and you can harness that space between languages. So already magic is really fascinating. I love that. Okay, so then you have the main characters themselves. You have your protagonist who grew up very isolated from other children his age and really didn't interact with them. And he gets to university and he meets people who have had similar experiences as him, who have kind of are from different parts of the globe and are people of color, and who have been kind of like adopted, or I forget the actual word that they use. They have like a kind of like a sponsor, like a white sponsor who sponsored their education and like that type of stuff, and they all end up with their native language and learning other languages, and like they're going to learn at this institute. And then one of the individuals in the cohort is a white girl that is of a bit more wealth, but it takes place in the 1700s, so women didn't really have the same rights that they currently do. There's a lot of kind of talk about race and racism on the page. Then there's these interaction of these characters with this storyline with like this institute that is like very colonial. It's like white individuals that take in people of color and kind of like utilize their language in order to develop for England at the time. There's a lot of discussion of colonialism. This book has a lot of time in the classroom. I loved that part of the book. I loved like the philosophizing about the translation of language and like the characters kind of just like living in that academic space. This is definitely like a dark academia. And then I really loved like the first half. I liked the book overall, but there is like quite a shift in plot in the book as it kind of goes along. There's kind of like a thing that happens that sets the book on a different path. even with me not loving the second half as much, I really appreciated where the author took it. I listened to an interview that I think RF Kuang gave on Daniel Green's channel before she published this book, when she just was kind of like talking about it. And she talks about how this character is quite a bit different than the character, like the protagonist in the Poppy War series. And they have more in common than you would think starting the book. But I will end it there. Okay, so the next book I read, another fantasy, was Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is his book that came out for his year of Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book that came out. I normally pop up an image of the book, but I want to show you guys because I did get the physical copy in the Kickstarter, and it is beautiful. I don't know if this is, I think this might be what you can get now, but let's just appreciate. So this is the cover. It's so pretty. You can see it like kind of has a shine to it. The edges are really nice. And then the back, I really love this too. This is kind of like indented in. And then it just, so pretty. It feels really nice quality. I love the end papers as well. And it has multiple like print colors. So, like you can see, like this is what the parts of the book read like. The chapters and how they were kind of conveyed. It's like from what I saw on the website, the individual who illustrated this also kind of helped participate in like creating the book as a whole, and I think had something to do with like what the chapters look like and stuff. It's quite nice. And then there's images in the book as well that are printed. So this is one of the first ones, so it's nothing spoilery. Super lovely, like such a nice print. Not all of them are full color prints, but yeah, it's just like a really beautiful book. And okay, so I've been reading a lot of books in the sea. This one also has some silver stuff going on. So Tress of the Emerald Sea is like, it's a quest fantasy. It's about a teenage girl who is in love with he's not a prince, he's some royalty on this little rock that lives, this little rock in an emerald sea, but the sea is made of spores. It's not made of water. And there's some stuff that he explains about fluid dynamics with particulates. And she goes on an adventure to reclaim him. I really loved this. It was just like very fun and whimsical. The author, like he's writing with like an authorial voice of a character who comes up in different parts of the Cosmere, but I have not like read many things with him in it. So it was very fun and playful and like broke the fourth wall quite a bit, where he would talk to you as like an audience of the book. I listened to it on audio, which was just nice. Michael Kramer narrates it. I love Michael Kramer's narrations. There's a lot of fun characters. You meet pirates. You have a talking rat. You have different types of seas that you're exploring. And Tress just like has a really fun character arc. It's never really taking itself too seriously. And there's just a lot of really fun things that happen, and there was like this twist at the end that I personally did not see coming, but I was just laughing out loud quite a bit as I was reading this, and kind of like, the stakes are a bit higher than Legends and Lattes, but overall it's just like, it fits that fun, charming, exciting fantasy where it's not trying to do anything crazy, but it's just such like a solid, fun, charming read. And I really liked it and just would highly recommend it. Okay, the last one that I'm going to talk about is What We Fed to the Manticore. This is a short story collection. Every single short story is from the perspective of an animal. And I thought that it was going to be like fun and exciting and like catch that whimsical vibe. No. No, I really enjoyed it though. These stories are all from the perspective of personified animals and their relationship to humans and humanity. There's one that takes place in a war-torn country from the perspective of an animal. There's ones that talk about like conservationism and environmentalism. Some of them are like the actual interactions of the animals with humans in a more intimate way, and some of them are more of like the repercussions of humanity. These are not lighthearted. They're fairly dark, and I found that a lot of them like hit an emotional root quite quickly for a short story. And I just thought it was like a fresh perspective to be kind of looking at and interacting with these issues through this perspective of animals. So overall, I thought it was a very strong short story collection that kind of stands out in terms of other short story collections I've read. Thematically, it was connected enough that it didn't feel like disparate like some short story collections can. But at the same time, it felt like they were unique enough that I wasn't reading the same story over and over again. So overall, I also thought that was a good read. So I had a fairly great reading month. That was all I read. I'm very curious to hear what you read in February, and if you've read any of these, or if you want to read any of them, but that is all I got. So until next time, happy reading.